Welcome, my dear ones. This is Tracy Anderson Askew, your host for the Transform Your Birth podcast, changing your mind about birth one story at a time. Each week, we'll be exploring a birth story through the lens of what birth can teach us. I'll be digging deep into each story so you can learn what it is that can change the way a birth unfolds. We can't control birth, but we can influence it. So listen in to find out how. Enjoy. Chelsea and Bilal, both chiropractors, went into their pregnancy with a great respect for the body and how to optimise its response to labour. They did the Transform Your Birth course to support and promote an optimal mindset and clearly define their roles in the birth process. The result? Well, listen in and find out. We end up having a unique conversation about what they think made the biggest difference to creating a beautiful entry for their daughter. Enjoy, dear ones. It's well worth the listen.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again this week. I've got just a very raw, fresh couple who are straight off the birthing, out of the birthing room. It's lovely, Chelsea and her partner, Bilal, which is wonderful. Thank you for coming, you two.
Thank you for
Thanks
having us.
And we've got little Maha, who's actually asleep beside them, so she might chime in at any stage. But we keep it pretty real on the podcast. So whatever sounds you're hearing are often beautiful sounds anyway. So, my darlings, you were pregnant with your gorgeous little girl. How are you feeling about the pregnancy, Chelsea, and what sort of prep did you do?
I had a really wonderful pregnancy. So I'm super active. I'm a chiropractor, so my work is really physical. I worked through to the end of 36 weeks.
Yeah.
And super active throughout. I also had a challenge, which I did start before I got pregnant, but something that I intended to continue doing during, which I did. I wanted to do 52 hikes for the year, and I've done 9.
You what? You got to 59?
I've done 59, yeah. So I still want to do a couple extra.
What a woman.
I definitely got shorter and less uphill towards the end of things. But yeah, we did a lot of hiking.
Movement was important.
Movement was really important.
Yeah, really.
And that was one of the things for strength and fresh air and relaxation and being grounded and centered in my surroundings that I really wanted to work on.
So were you nervous about birth, or did you feel pretty confident?
Not at all. I wasn't nervous kind of going into it. There was lots of mental prep that I did. I definitely had a mantra throughout the pregnancy that, my body was made to do this. I guess I'd been really lucky that I'd been exposed through work and through my education that there was kind of other possible outcomes than the scariness that is often presented with birth. So through my chiro education, I'd done a peds and pregnancy post-grad, so I had a lot of information there, and I'd also been able to see a water birth. I think the first time I was exposed to it would have been 2016, so it was something that I was kind of familiar with that was an option for a long time, and that was something that I definitely set as a something that I wanted to do.
Yeah. So chiros have a great respect for the intelligence of the body. That's what they work with when it comes to promoting healing. So that would have gone a long way in supporting you to feel positive about it. So you both came and did my Transform Your Birth course. Tell me how that was for you.
How about you start?
I'll start. Okay, excellent. Right. I loved it. And I had, as a male, it's a bit difficult because, you're how much do you know, and how much can you rely on your own thoughts and feelings, and my initial thoughts and feelings before doing your course is I think birth can be different to the current culture of horror, maybe a horror story or difficulties, and I don't want to take anything from anyone that's experienced that, but I felt like not enough of the beautiful experience was shared until I got to your course, Tracy, and you absolutely spoke that language, and that those 2 days over the weekend were excellent because not only did you give us the mindset that you can have an amazing birth, but you gave us the tools that help you move towards that. So I found that phenomenal, and I was really excited.
Yeah, that's great.
Up to arrive after.
Yeah, I love to watch the change that partners go through, because they come in feeling like they're tokenistic bystanders, and then they start to realize that, oh my gosh, I could really have an impact on this. I always say to the partners, you have the capacity to make her labor easier and shorter, which is a big statement to make, but it really comes down to the direct influence they have on oxytocin production.
Absolutely.
The love hormone. So if you've got a partner in there that loves that woman and really is attentive and supports her, then that promotes peak amounts of oxytocin, which supports the labour progress, which is wonderful. So I also give the partners a checklist of what to do and what not to do. How did you find that, Bilal, in terms of, just being really practical? And
extremely helpful, because I had a good sense of intuition when it came to how I could support Chelsea, and that just filled in the gaps that I had with that. And so it gave me the information, as well as trusting my gut and trusting Chelsea moving forward. So I think it was brilliant for where I was at and what I was hoping, how I was hoping to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I suspect, judging by the way Chelsea's lovingly looking into your eyes, that you milked that damn checklist and you made yourself look very shiny at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just really excited for the moment, and I was ready. So I was like, I'm like, I knew. I actually had a confidence, and I was like, I'm gonna nail it. And so that's the mindset before it happened.
Yeah.
So it just meant that's
Beautiful.
how I follow through.
Yeah, he was instrumental in that labour period for sure. He held my pelvis for every contraction. I was having them probably 5 minutes apart from the beginning when they first started, and there were maybe, he missed maybe 10 because he was doing something else for me, like refilling a water bottle or doing something else, and they were much nicer when he was there.
I bet he built up his guns after that.
He worked hard. He worked hard.
So all the tools that you gave us that I used.
Yeah. So there's a lot of change, deep transformational change that goes on. It's not just with powerful knowledge, but it's also much deeper than that. Chelsea, tell us what you noticed in, your learning and how you changed, because you were already pretty confident. So what sort of internal changes did you notice as a result of going through that change process?
I think it was just more having like a list that I could reference in terms of what I could use during. I think I was maybe hoping that there would be like a silver bullet, magic bullet kind of like, oh, you just do this. And really what it was just going back to kind of primal connection of just different stimulations that you can use, which is, I guess, a big part of my training in terms of, distractions from what's going on, or, going internal and listening to your body, and just kind of those really basic things that were just so successful in helping me address what was going on at the time during that early phase. But something that we've reflected on is that when we did arrive in hospital, all I wanted to do was just get in that water bath. Like as soon as we got there, I was like, all right, this is what I need. And from that point, I was just in a trance, in a zone. I barely opened my eyes. I don't think I spoke for the 2.5 hours that I was in the bath for. I was so focused on what I was doing. It was me in that zone.
Trusting the body and trusting baby.
Now, you did mention earlier that you went to some hospital classes. Now, this is an interesting topic I want to bring forward, because the hospitals run classes, and I always encourage couples to do them, because you get to know what the ground rules are where you're birthing and their policies, and you get to meet some people, and they're often really, really useful. How did you find that experience in helping you to prepare? What was it like with those
There
classes?
was definitely some positives from the birth class. So they got to do things that you could only do contextually there. So they took you through the rooms and they showed you what they apply, what you don't need to bring, what you do need to bring, of course, too. Just giving you that context that you obviously could never get if you weren't there. So that was super helpful in mentally preparing what that's going to look like when you arrive. And it was just a more detailed. But some of the other bits that they did was just, it really felt like it was more scary based. So I guess there's just always a fine line between what could happen or what may happen, and trying to give yourself enough education so you can be prepared for it. But there was a strong focus on, I guess, the scary sides of things too, for if things don't go to plan, kind of where you'll be at. One of the big things that was done, which I totally understand where the midwife was coming from, was she put the words pain and suffering up on the whiteboard and asked us to kind of explain them in relationship to birth. And
it's about a 20-minute exercise.
It was about 20-minute
30
exercise.
minutes, yeah.
And what she was trying to do is certainly reframe pain and explain that each contraction that you do is doing a wonderful thing for your baby. It's helping squish fluid out. Her experience of birth was she actually had cesareans for both, but she still wanted to go through that labor process so baby could reap those benefits and then have the cesarean after. So it was certainly trying to give that context. And what she really wanted to make clear is that we don't want to get to a point of suffering at any stage, because that's where you can have some emotional trauma or physical trauma. And she was really trying to define those two separately, that one is okay, that pain is short-lived, if it's there, and will bring benefits. And then the suffering is something that we want to avoid, which is completely understandable. But we kind of sat there because we'd done your course and we knew that there were kind of other options, and you actually interjected.
Yes, there was a hyper focus on the context of pain and suffering, and the narrative didn't really flip at a point where everyone could be given tools to go, okay, what's a successful birth look like, or what is a successful experience or what is a different experience. And so I'll be honest, I'm quite intuitive with reading the room. The life got sucked out of the room by the end of the exercise, and there was definitely a lot of deer in the headlights sort of amongst other parents to be there. So and I did ask a question, and I knew the answer. It was more to interrupt that flow, because I felt like it was really going down a rabbit hole of really imprinting this idea into everyone's subconscious is there'll probably be pain and suffering without them knowing that's what's going to happen. And so I kind of I felt very strongly, and Chelsea can probably tell you, we had our break after, and I walked out very disappointed, not for our sake, but for everyone else, because I felt like they deserved more than what was being discussed.
I really understand, and because I work a lot with midwives, and I do midwifery workshops, and I go out to the universities and work with the student midwives too, and I can really understand their thinking around people not getting surprised by things. And so if they tell them in great detail a lot of the things of what can happen, including the pain, then they're not going to come back later and say, well, you didn't tell me that this was likely to happen. And this is part of the challenge that we have, because every woman in that room is walking into the mystery, and we can't guarantee much about birth, but we can pretty much guarantee everyone's going to experience it differently. So it's the thinking is sound in trying to help women to not deal with surprises. But from a subconscious point of view, the subconscious is the part of the mind that dictates the birth process, and it's wired to hook onto fears. So if you make a statement around pain, there's going to be pain and suffering, the subconscious goes, "Whoa, I better take that now. Geez, what am I going to do with that? I know, I'll tense up. I'll go into a defense response. I'll go into a survival response."
I'll release adrenaline.
I'll release adrenaline and I'll do all of
I'll
this. So
start
you're kind of
muscles.
you're setting the scene and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
And I think you mentioned in our earlier discussion that they went through a lot about all the different things that can happen. Is that true? Just tell us.
Yeah, so they went through like what would happen if you needed an induction, what would happen if you needed, or what's the other one? If your labor starts and then stops, they have to kind of restart it again.
Right, to induce it, augment it.
Yes, yeah. And so they
went through
covered
cesarean, they went through water injections, they went through an epidural, they went through the gas, they went through other medication options. Forceps, vacuum, all those things. Yeah, and it's such a fine line between education and being aware of what could happen, but then it's a lot of input. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. So for the people listening today, I think it's helpful to know we don't want surprises in birth. We do need that, know that sometimes women need help, and that information can be helpful. But when it's delivered without context or not, it needs to be in a container of understanding and to address the how to deal with it. Because without the how, you've just thrown people in the deep end without a life raft. And the mind, in the way that it's wired, is very much about picking up a bit around danger. And so all of these things to a pregnant woman feel like that it's dangerous, and oh my gosh, what if I had to have forceps, and what if I had to have a cesarean? How would that be, and how would I cope? And too much detail around that can then create images in the mind. Words and images create physiology. Physiology is a response to labor. And if it's in a container of fear, then that labor is going to progress in a way where the woman's working against the birth, not with it. So it's difficult to sort of go into great detail in terms of how I work with people. Is I have a very, very clear and intentional path of helping to awaken them to their inner resources, to the blueprint of creation, to the incredible hormonal cocktail that we have access to, and to distill all of that information into a very clear pathway. This is what you do, birthing mums and partners and dads, this is what you do. And when it's so clear, you've just given them a beautiful container of, okay, you're walking into the mystery. We're all acknowledging that. Sometimes women need help. We're all acknowledging that. But this is what your job is, and this is what your job is, and this will get you through birth under all circumstances. And your job is to train your mind, to get your mind on board, and to start to educate your mind to see birth in a way that is beneficial, that every contraction that you have is contributing to the final outcome, that every contraction that you have is one step closer to meeting your baby, that every contraction that you have is just your big, powerful muscle doing a big, powerful job. And when we give it lots of blood and oxygen, it works really well. So when I talk to midwives about this, and they'll say to me things like, well, look, Tracy, you don't talk about labour as painful. Well, most of women are going to experience it as pain. And I say to them, well, how do you know, for starters? Because the pain continuum is quite extensive. Women can experience it as excruciating, painful, manageable, painless, and even orgasmic and ecstatic. So if that's what's on the menu, you need to tell people that's on the menu. Don't just sit up and give them, one part of the picture. And I say to them, when they say to me, well, what do we tell women when they ask about the pain? And I say, you tell them the truth. And the truth is this: the more relaxed a woman is in labour, the more manageable labour becomes, because she's keeping the blood flow and the oxygen where it needs to be. And when that big, powerful muscle doesn't get enough blood and oxygen, it becomes ischemic, which means it cramps up and gets very painful. And you can just say this: every woman experiences it differently. Every time she has a baby, it's a different experience because there's different forces at play. It's a different human. And the more relaxed a woman is in labour, the more manageable labour becomes. And that women have been doing this forever. We can handle the pain, even if it is pain. It's pain with a purpose, and it's pain that we can manage. And we can manage it because we've got bloody drugs inside of us, which are called endorphins. So that's me on my soapbox now. Yeah, but I think it's a conversation worthy of consideration, because all women get told is that it's going to be painful and they're going to need the epidural. And I think it's important we open our mind to possibilities and start to train our mind to understand birth in a much more profound, wider, and I would say realistic way. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you obviously got on board with that little bit of brainwashing that I took you through to believe in yourself. You can do this, guys. So tell us.
We used a TENS machine at home, which was fantastic. We got it on pretty early. It was actually really.
Tell us how it unfolded. Start from the beginning.
As in from like waters breaking?
Yeah. So your waters broke at the beginning, did they?
Waters broke at 4 o'clock. I was kind of like, was that? 4 p.m. Sorry. I was like, oh, was that some incontinence? What was that? I haven't had any incontinence during the pregnancy, but I was like, oh, that felt a bit different. It definitely wasn't the Hollywood gush. It was kind of a little bit here, and then I'd move, and then there was a little bit there. So bub descending kind of down, kind of moving out the way. Because it was still sunny, I went, right, I want to do gardening. So I went outside.
As you do.
And got down on all fours, started doing some weeding in a patch. I'd messaged Bilal and the midwives being like, oh, something's happened. I did maybe an hour pulling weeds out in the garden, just that really lovely kind of get in with nature, have a look at what's going on. I went, oh, we might be going. There's a few hot days. So then I did a big water as well.
Oh, nice.
We could potentially be gone for a couple of days, so let's just get this done.
I love stories like that where you bring in, your story integrates in with home, and how it's a beautiful thing. Just addressing the waters breaking on TV, you always see it on TV. But typically waters break at the end when the pressure's at its greatest, but it can break at any time in a labour. But it's less common at the beginning. And what Chelsea's describing is not a big gush, which basically means there's probably been a little bit of a tear in the membranes and it's just coming out gradually. Sometimes it can be a big tear and the amniotic fluid comes out, depending on whether the baby's blocking it or whatever. And other times it can be just a slow and gradual leak. So you were doing gardening.
So I think I probably had maybe 10 little gushes that stayed over maybe a couple of hours. Definitely no contractions at the beginning, but in the 2 days before, I definitely noticed some changes in terms of bub, just getting ready. So that could have potentially been pre-labor, but like nothing that I would describe as a contraction, or just it's kind of like, I think something might be happening soon. So that was 4. I probably came inside around 5:30, started prepping dinner, which I then wasted later on. It all came back up, but that's okay. I made sure to chew it really well, just in case. Was prepping dinner. I messaged Bilal and I said, look, just come home when you finished work, but no rush, no hurry. Nothing had started yet.
Weren't you calm?
Yeah, well,
absolutely, I can vouch for
nothing had happened yet, so just the waters breaking. Put the nappy on as I was told to, so I could see kind of what colors were happening and just make sure I could monitor everything there. Prepped a lovely dinner. Bilal came home. I think my contraction started around 6. They actually started about 5 minutes apart from the beginning, so it was a longer.
That's quite common with waters breaking at the beginning, because it brings baby down more heavily on the cervix, and it's the pressure of the baby's head on the cervix which releases the pulses of oxytocin. So more pressure, more oxytocin, more strong contraction. So she was right down.
She was ready. And that was the other thing. I could really feel that she had dropped. So when those waters broke, kind of I was feeling where the fundus of the cervix was, and I was like, I've got some space. I can breathe a little bit easier
yeah.
again. I had this little soft squishy bit at the top, which hadn't been there for quite a while.
Wow.
Yeah, my contractions, they were very manageable. At the beginning, it was just breathing. Maybe an hour or two into that, we got the TENS machine on. I'd tried the TENS just on the pulse, but I actually hadn't tried the boost prior to starting. And that's probably the scaredest that I got at home. I was really tentative to put the boost on because I was worried it was going to be more painful. So I reckon for about an hour, I didn't use the boost. And then I did have a more intense contraction. And I just hit the boost and I was like, oh, this is so much better. Why didn't I try that before? So I would certainly recommend, if you have a TENS machine, try it out so you know what's coming. Because I wasted about an hour, I'd say, doing that. We also used hot water to try, obviously without the TENS. And then I did have the comb, which I used to kind of push to change sensation as well. At home, I would often forget to do that when I had the TENS. I think I just had a few too many things going on from that point of view. But then, yes, the other massive support was my wonderful husband squeezing my pelvis. We found kind of more at the top was the best position for me. And I'm sure that changed a little bit as Bub continued to descend. But he was fantastic at contracting through there. Used the hot water bottle as well. Maybe around 8 p.m. I tried to see if I could have a sleep, just to try and get some extra energy. And I laid down and that slowed the contractions. So I had less, I had more recovery, but then the contractions themselves were much more intense. Yeah. So I would kind of lay for a little bit and then try and jump up on all fours for the next contraction. So I didn't realize that we had missed the boat on a sleep and a rest before, and we were going to be going all night.
That's when the coffee came on.
That's when he had a coffee.
I made the recognition. I was like, I either sleep if she does. If not, it's like coffee's on. It's going to be an all-nighter.
You didn't breathe it all over, did you, Bilal? Because she's sensitive to smell.
I remembered, and I brushed my teeth. As soon as I was done, I brushed my teeth in between.
Well done. Women get a bit irritated by smells in labour.
So yes, so I know that. So I remembered your advice, Tracy. That was one I didn't forget. And she did beautifully throughout it. Yeah. My job, it was really important. My role there was to really keep her connected to her body and Bub throughout. So there were times like, oh, how long's it been? Or what's the time? And I would really try and deflect where possible and just say, hey, you're doing great. You're progressing along nicely. Keep it up. Keep focused.
Wow.
It's just there every contraction. She really loved me just really compressing the hips from the side. And she told me after that gave her so much sort of help and support.
Squeeze.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just made sure she was breathing. I made sure she was calm. And that was all a continuation throughout pregnancy. And I wanted to make sure that she had a vision of this really extraordinary birth. So, that was a theme that continued throughout. And that was my job to allow her to remember that that's what's going to happen. And I spoke like it was going to happen, not like it's maybe possibly. It was like, you're going to have an amazing birth, and that's what I want you to focus on. So it really transpired, and breathing was excellent. And because breathing was excellent, Chelsea was really connected and calm. And there were some intense moments, but she didn't run away from it, nor did she feel like it was over too much. She knew that every contraction was going to lead to this beautiful moment. And so, I really watched the signs, and I watched her breathing. I had a little stopwatch. So if any partners are watching with a baby due, have a stopwatch that you can use for timing and for your own knowledge, not to pass on to partner. It really helped because it got to a point which was around 1:30 a.m. where I could see contractions were really long and the space between was really short. And it wasn't a verbal moment where Chelsea said, oh, I'm done, but rather I could see a complete shift in her body expression, her focus,
Mm.
everything got really intense in a way of like she was super focused. So, and with that knowledge, I thought, great, now's a good time to take her to the hospital. And so that was really important. And obviously just checking in with her to see, you know, how you're feeling, what's going on, to see if there was much language around it or whether she was and I could see she was just really, took her a while to answer and she was first. So I just thought, yep, these are all good signs for the next labour. So
probably an hour before that point, I was like, all right, I think I'm ready. And he's like, you keep going. You keep going.
Yeah, sorry. I'll very briefly. And that was a really help, Tracy, for your course, because I said, okay, cool, you know, what makes you think you're ready? How are you feeling? And the conversation was really like normal from her. And I said, okay, cool, it's possible. But I just said to her, look, you're doing really well. And I love having you here at home where I can support you. Let's keep going. And she did. Thankfully, she did. And that's what led to the moment where I really noticed a shift later. And she was really, it got kind of really intense focus. So that was a really important takeaway.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great you were able to read that because she wasn't externalizing and showing outward signs. Can you remember that phase? Because that sounds very transition-y, what you're describing. Can you remember what was going on for you internally then, Chels?
Not really. not really.
And that was
she was very quiet, Bilal. So the fact that you picked up on it was really useful.
Well, early on, I recognized that she was very, very in this moment, and it was really calm. So my job wasn't just a physical role. To have a presence and a connection with her to recognize all these things that were going to happen. And you know, I'm blessed that I could do that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that not everyone will have that intuition. That's okay. You know, it can be done in different ways. But, you know, that's a really important role for the partner is you're going to make those calls and you're going to have to be really present. And, you know, if you have your phone with you, for example, that, you know, takes your attention away if you're using your phone in between contractions or you know, you really want to be present and observing, okay, how's she moving? How's she breathing? Where's the focus? What's shifted? And so, you know, all these things kind of came together to allow me to go, okay, now she's ready.
I did ask for the time a few times throughout that early labour, and he did tell me, and then on reflection he's like, oh, I should stop telling you the time, not the time of contractions, but certainly the time,
just the general time.
And it was pretty good. I asked once every 2 hours for 3 hours, and then towards the end when it was getting more intense, I remember asking, and it had only been 45 minutes since the last time. So that, like, it was quite spaced. I was like, yep, cool, 2 hours, we're going pretty well. And then I could tell it was a lot more intense because it was only 45 minutes since the last time I'd asked him.
And so I was keeping time. It was all good tools.
And at that point, he didn't tell me the time again.
So all tools that I took away, these are all tools that I took away from your workshop, Tracy. Thank you again for
well, we don't, that time thing is an interesting one because it's, well, Sheila Kitzinger says she's a well-known anthropologist. She says the most dangerous piece of equipment in the labour room is the clock. And so what happens is women get a bit focused on time, and what that gives rise to is this: how much longer do I have to keep going thinking?
Correct.
And that pulls her out of the zone. It puts her back in her cortex brain. And we want to avoid that. Now, the beautiful thing in endorphins, which are the body's natural opiates, have a timelessness quality to them. So women who are in the moment don't really think much about time. But it sounds like your labour was very intense, given that it started very strongly from the very beginning. So you would have been wondering, how much longer do I have to keep going?
I think in the earlier bits when I was at the time, I was kind of just more like, you know, how am I doing? Like, how? What is this like? And when I kind of got the 3 consistent at 2 hours, I'm like, cool. Like I'm processing okay. I'm still tracking all right. And and
an important thing was in the moment it really got intense later on, taking away from what she had to do, but rather there's this little human that's really close, and I think I was just playing on motherly instincts here. I said, hey, she's waiting, or baby, we didn't know the gender. I said, baby's waiting for you. And can you see it there in the future? You know, like I kind of transported her brain that way. And that kind of took her to a moment where she's holding baby. So it just took her out of that moment of, oh my God, can I do this? Or how intense is this? How long have I got? To, oh yeah, this baby's there and I can feel it and I can see it and I'm ready to, hold my baby. So I didn't have to use that much. Credit to Chelsea because she was really present. But it was maybe once or twice where I said, hey, you're doing amazing. And hey, get ready to hold your baby. This is going to be...
If ever anything will get you through, it's that vision of holding your baby. Well done, Bilal. You
was excellent.
And so that both times it brought a smile on her face, even though sort of that intensity.
We've had a few comments from people going, oh, Bilal worked really hard, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, he did. Like, he worked really hard.
Squeezes are hard things to do for a long period of time. Like, I've been there, done that.
The full 8 hours we were at home, and every 5 minutes minimum. That's a lot of squeezes.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a doula, I used to always take photos of the couples afterwards, and the blokes always looked much worse.
That was me. Yeah, absolutely.
The women are like, they're looking, look at me. They've got all these drugs in their system of,
Chelsea took a selfie after, and she's beaming, and she's got up there, and I'm in the background and just crashed out. It was actually comical.
Oh, wow. So tell us about when you transitioned. How did you do that to the hospital? What was that like?
So I called midwife. She said, yep, about 40 minutes. And I was like, oh dear, because we're only 10 minutes away. So I knew that we were still staying there for a little bit longer. Obviously everything was packed, ready to go, which was great. We were all organised from that point of view. So just keeping through some contractions. We refilled the hot water bottle, got our water ready because that was the other thing. Toilet and drinking water was really easy during. I nearly felt like I had to do something, either a wee or a poo after nearly every contraction. So that was not a problem in keeping that moving well.
Your plumbing was working?
It was working real well, which was great. I often wouldn't do anything. It was just that sensation of, I'm sure, all the receptors going, oh, there's pressure here. That worked smoothly. The car ride was tough. After being able to be so free and moving and in position, we actually had the car seat behind, the bub car seat behind
the passenger,
and our car isn't huge, so I didn't have a lot of leg room, and so I was in very much a fixed position with the seatbelt on, just going like, it's not enjoyable at all. And I think it's only an 11-minute drive. I think I had 5 contractions in the car. Yeah, so that wasn't enjoyable. They were probably the most uncomfortable ones I had.
Yeah. And so transition, I think, it was that moment where things just shifted in presence. So I was, I just got everything ready, wanted her to focus, and I was between, grabbing something, putting it somewhere, and then contraction, I'd come and help her and then bounce out. And, I really wanted to make sure that she had as much support, so that that was the only difficult time for her, was in the car, where I was literally focused on driving, but, staying calm, breathing, making sure those breaths are supportive for keeping her calm. So they were really the things that she continued to do. And it was slow, getting out of the car at the hospital and walking, there's going to be contractions in between. So making sure I'm, compressing the pelvis, holding her if I needed to, all those sorts of things, just to allow her to get through it. So, and then by the time we got to the birth suite, and she knew, it was instinctive. She was like, midwife did all the checks, and she was like, I just need to get in that bath. So that was sort of from transition to the next stage. We had all the checks done. Heart rate was looking really good. My blood pressure was fine. I was happy to have a cervical screening to assess measurement, but we requested to not know how far along I was.
That's brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
The midwife.
kind of. So what Kat had suggested, my midwife, is that she said if you are far enough along, then you're allowed to get in the bath. And if you're not far enough along,
No.
so she measured, and then she said you're allowed to get in the bath.
Oh,
Would you like
okay,
to know
you might
how
as
far
well have
along
put.
you are? And
And
I
she
said,
just said
no,
no.
I don't want to. If I'm far enough, then I knew that I would be over 6, so probably 7, 8, 9. We then requested the next morning. Turns out I was 7. But I think I might have been probably further along at home, and then kind of retracted a little bit in the car. And so there was definitely more, more discomfort there. So I'm sure that changed when I got back in the bath.
Sure. It was a pretty quick decision for her to say, I don't want to know. I just want to get in the bath and do this. So
don't tell me I'm far enough. That's fine. I
God help her if she had said to you, no, you're not ready to get in the bath. You probably would have ripped your head off.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been happy.
And that was the primary premise of me keeping her home.
Yeah.
Beyond,
so she didn't have to deal with that.
That'd be heartbreaking for women knowing that, oh no, you're not there yet, and you feel like all this weight comes on you of, oh my God, can I do this? It's gone.
These are tricky little mind moments, aren't they? This is where women can really be a little bit hijacked in their minds, having to deal with, and your midwife's wise, because if you get in the bath too early, it can slow everything down.
Well, my contractions definitely did slow once I got in the bath. They were still very manageable, but they were definitely slower, which was nice for me to recovery, to be honest. Just a short bit. Yeah.
So tell us about second stage. How did that unfold?
So second stage was quite quick overall. So the bath itself was 2 hours.
A bit over 2 hours.
2.5 hours. While we were there. I mentioned before, I just got into a complete zone. I didn't speak to anyone. I had my eyes closed. I received information mostly. I've watched a couple of the videos back that we have, and I was like, oh, don't remember you saying that. Don't remember that happening. So very much just in the zone. And then one of the getting to the pushing part was really interesting. I was definitely apprehensive because I didn't want to either push too early, or obviously it's again something I've never done. So I got to that point being like, is it time? Is it ready? And if I didn't feel that like really need to push urge, I tried not to, but it definitely came, and it was definitely a different sensation to what I was expecting. It was very unique. Which was great, because then I knew, you're doing the right thing, because you've never felt anything like this before, which was wonderful. Birthing the head, because Bub was head down. It was also really interesting that I had no idea or no concept of how much I was pushing. So Bub did come out, back in, as they do when those tissues are getting stretched and getting used to that. I reckon maybe 10 to 15 times that happened, of Bub coming out and back in again. But what the interesting concept is I had no idea if it was like Bub's head was coming out a centimetre or like half the head. I had no awareness as to how much that was happening. And then as soon as we got to the halfway point, and then the rest of the head came, that was such like I was like, oh, that's happened. Like I just... that was, I was like, oh, we birthed the head, like just instantly, you knew that. And then there was a little rest, and then Bub turned herself. So that was just phenomenal. That feeling, that sensation, because it partly felt like she was trying to come back in, which I was not okay with. I didn't want that. But it was just her rotating. And it was the first time that I was just like, this isn't me. This isn't me. This is the other person. This is my baby that's just turning and doing it. It was so strong and so powerful, from her just turning into that shoulder position. That it was just beautiful. It was so wonderful.
And it was literally the next push,
the next contraction, shoulders out, Bub through, it did feel when that next contraction came that the midwives were pulling her out. It really did. Again, it was that powerful. And I've got the videos to say that they weren't touching her.
She was shooting out.
There was no hands on. And then Kat really gently just pushed Bub underwater through my legs. And then I got to pick her up and on my chest. Come up and out of the water, and it was so beautiful.
I got goosies.
It was amazing. What did she say? She said, "Reach down."
She goes, "Reach down, my love. Grab your child." So, yeah.
And as you suggested, didn't check the gender straight away. Just held her up on my chest.
People forget to.
So happy.
And then the midwife said, "Hey, do you want to see what you've got? Is it a boy or a girl?" So.
I was like, "Oh yes, I totally forgot that was something that we had to check." So I had a look and saw that we're having a beautiful girl.
Amazing. Yeah, it was really amazing. That second stage was it was primal in a beautiful way. Like she was there and present and in the zone, and no one needed to speak to her. She made it really effortless. And even midwives suggested, she's doing amazing, and thank you, dear. And then she was just calm, breathing. And what was noticeable is she didn't push or panic when she just listened, and the body, you really look like your body just told you when to push, and you pushed. And it probably seemed to her like a long time. It was really quick, that second stage. Not in a rushed, out of control way. It was just a really natural rhythm. And Bub was here in no time, and she just
But tell us about the feeling, both of you. Who wants to go first about what that was like seeing her for the first time?
It was just magical. It's just magical.
Surreal.
I was really surprised that she was a girl. I hadn't had strong feelings either way because I really wanted it to be a surprise, I think. But Bilal's family is strong in the boy front. There's 6 boys and now 2 girls in terms of the next generation, and then he's 5 boys. So I very much thought that we were going to have a boy just from that stat alone. So that was pretty surreal.
It's pretty extraordinary seeing her arrive and just Chelsea holding her. And she was there, you're like, wow, this is, we know she's been in your womb, but like just seeing her there and you holding her was just, amazing. And, hearing her first cry, it was perfect. It
was a little bit longer for the first cry, so maybe 20 seconds or so, because I think a water birth. She realized that she was outside, and obviously she still got the umbilical cord, so she still got oxygen, but that cry was beautiful.
It was just amazing. The midwives were really supportive and gave Chelsea and I all the time, as much time as possible to just hold her skin to skin, and just I think you had over an hour or close to 2 hours.
I'd requested 2 hours of skin to skin, the golden hour. I requested 2 hours. What I actually meant by that is me an hour and he an hour. But they took it as me 2 hours, and I didn't complain. I was like, sure.
They were like, great, you'll get 2 hours.
They're like, you can have 2 hours if you want 2 hours. So
perfect. It was perfect.
That was great.
So it was very, very peaceful, very beautiful. There was just a lot of emotion. It was gorgeous.
So you really did have the most extraordinary, straightforward, uncomplicated optimization of your inner resources and your physiology, sort of a birth that you could ever wish for. What do you, as you look back now, I mean, how many weeks postpartum are you? How old is she?
She's 9 days old.
She's 9 days old. The fact that you can string a sentence together is impressive. I still think these two are bloody high on their hormones. But as you look back at it now, and it may not be this clear at this point, but just feel free to share what comes to you. What do you think are the things that set you up for success to have an uncomplicated birth? Because one of the biggest things that will change birth is babies being in good positions and things like that. And I'm really curious, because you're a chiro, Chel, so I think you'll have some really good ideas around this, and the fact that you were so active, you kept your body moving, which has implications. What do you think?
That was one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, is I got adjusted twice a week throughout my entire pregnancy.
Interesting.
So pelvic alignment, huge. Bub was always in a good position, was head down from when it's important to be head down.
Yeah.
At 10 weeks, it doesn't matter where they are. They've got plenty of time to move. But yeah, Bub was always in a great position. From there, I had very little pain or discomfort during my pregnancy, like very little low back pain, very little round ligament pain. I never had any reflux or any heartburn, because Bub was always, in that beautiful space.
Even in terms of bladder overnight, it's not like she didn't.
I maybe went to the toilet 10 times overnight through my whole pregnancy, which I'm sure a lot of women will be unhappy with me for saying.
So why do you think that's the case? I mean, because pregnancy symptoms we consider to be normal. However, they can be an indication that things are out of balance. I know we've got this wonderful teacher in our community who talks about balancing the body, and comes and talks to my pregnant women about that.
Perfect.
So yeah, what do you think?
Like I say to a lot of my patients, there's common and then there's normal.
Yeah.
And this is my first pregnancy, and things may look very different for future ones, so I hope I don't jinx myself with that at all. But the body's innate ability to do things, and if your nervous system is functioning well,
that should lead the experience.
That's the bigger.
Yeah. If I can add to Chelsea's experience, a lot of movement, and people will realize that a lot of family members have this misconception that, oh no, you got to just sit still, don't do anything, don't like through your pregnancy, don't exert yourself. And it was quite the opposite. Chelsea just went with her body, and she didn't overdo anything, but she allowed movement as part of her lifestyle. That goal setting and visualization was so key too. Hey, I didn't even entertain any other possibilities. I just said, hey, your intention is for something extraordinary in terms of pregnancy and birth. I don't want you to drop a standard at anything lower. And so that might feed into what you were saying, Tracy, what is accepted as normal in pregnancy versus what actually it's what's common and what could be your normal. And so we just made this mindset of a really amazing experience as the normal. And so she tuned to that. In addition to chiropractic care that I was giving her, it just allowed her to thrive and be herself. So, movement, mindset, getting help with allowing the body to do its natural course. And
I'd say stress levels as well. So I did, in my first trimester, we moved house. And I did have morning sickness for 7 or 8 weeks. And my morning sickness hit a peak on the weekend that we moved house. And as soon as we finished, my morning sickness went away. So the impact that stress was having on that was obviously instrumental. I went to hospital for it because I vomited like 7 times in one morning, and I was obviously dehydrated, and and I actually didn't even do that much moving house. I made sure to, because I wasn't feeling great, I made sure to not do a huge amount. And when we were in the house, it suddenly just I would say that I've been more relaxed during the pregnancy than what I typically am, and that was something that I really wanted to work towards too.
Which is,
and I'm sure the getting adjusted, going out for walks, making sure that I was really active, all of those things really contributed to that. But just also, mentally going, cool, don't sweat the small stuff. Like there are more important things that you need to be doing.
The breath work and meditation stuff, that has to start from
the practices that I gave you. Were they a big part of it as well?
Really absolutely.
Yeah. And it helped, I noticed with Chelsea, just really helped shift that mindset, and with that practice kind of helped her change her relationship with this concept of pain. So, rather than this thing that's just scary and horrible and avoid at all costs, to okay, cool, there's going to be some intensity and discomfort, but it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be a part of it, and I'm going to practice my breath. And she did practice sort of the breathing that she'd do when labor was happening. So all those things I think contributed.
Do you have any thoughts about diet?
I ate really well. Yeah.
So what does really well mean?
Really well, yeah, define that.
Plenty of salads. I did actually have a fair bit of sugar cravings at some point, but I figured too I was making a human, so I definitely did some indulgence in the sugar side of things, chocolate and sweets here and there, but relatively lots of whole foods.
Was that a if you don't mind me asking a question,
No,
Tracy,
not at all.
was that like a really like always in your mind focus, or was it just a natural thing that just happened when you talk about
I'd say we always eat reasonably, like it's mostly home cooked meals, lots of veggies. Probably we eat vegetarian twice a week on average. Good quality meats.
So it wasn't
for the other ones.
Yeah,
wasn't particularly. I don't think that different to how we usually eat.
She did. I didn't notice you kind of made it an obsessive focus.
No.
Like you ate well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you ate things that had sugar in them.
Yeah.
Whatever. You don't punish. She didn't punish herself for it.
I think this discussion is the first time I've had this discussion on the podcast, and I'm glad we're going there, because I do, as a person who prepares people, I always question, what are the things that are going to move the needle? And what you're describing there is a lot of conscious awareness around optimizing your body from, when you look at what the body needs to be in balance, it needs movement, and movement with a body that's aligned. So any sort of adjusting and things like that, keeping things, which, is how the nervous system then gets optimized. Good quality food, which I think we can get a little bit, caught up in I'm pregnant, I can eat anything. But actually, there's a lot of foods that we buy that shouldn't even be called foods. They're just shit.
Yeah.
So the more of that you give to yourself, the more your body has to deal with it.
I'd probably say in terms of like the sweets and things that I had, they were still real food. Like there wasn't processed stuff.
It's important to say we just naturally like to cook a lot. Like we like cooking, so it just meant
it's just real food. Real food from the paddock or the
I'm also a celiac, so everything was gluten-free from that view too. So that cuts out a lot of kind of the white breads and processed stuff.
Interesting. Well, my darlings, you have shared so much with us today. 9 days postpartum, which is quite a feat. But much wisdom in this birth story for those listening. We've covered a lot of territory, and they had, an incredible awareness and consciousness around not just working with Chelsea's physical body and making sure she was eating well, exercising well, but also, as Bilal talked about, really holding that mindset of belief in themselves and setting a standard. This is what we're going for, an extraordinary birth, which is a powerful thing to harness. I mean, the mind is the superpower, and the mind and the body are one and the same. So it's a great example of how we can optimize and potentially minimize complexity that can come into the birth experience. Is there anything you two would like to say to finish off? Maha, she knows. She's making an appearance now.
She is
making herself known.
Probably just the only thing to add in would be just post-birth there was just a couple of small complications. So my placenta didn't come out physiologically. I did need the shot of Syntocin, but my midwife was fantastic. They asked me initially at the 20-minute mark, hey, can we do the Syntocin? And I said, we've got an hour. Can we, is there anything else that we can do? So they got me to stand, use gravity, try and pass some urine. And then eventually we did have the shot of Syntocin, and then they had to pull on the umbilical cord as well to get it to come out. Sorry, Munchkin. And then I did need some stitches as well. So I had some really just kind of grazing, just a little over the grade 1 and into a grade 2 tearing. I had 4, so I needed some stitches for that. That was actually the most uncomfortable part of the entire birth, was getting the injections of the
local anesthetic.
That was in the labia. That was awful. I wailed for those. That was by far the most.
After going through everything, and then
going through that,
complain about a needle, for God's sakes, Chelsea.
At one point, the pain kind of started coming back, like I could feel the needle again.
Yeah.
And so the OBGYN said, cool. And she grabbed the local again. And I'm like, oh no, can I have it without? Because I would have preferred to just have the needle. And it wasn't no pain. There was still some pain that was being blocked from the medication, but I didn't want another injection of local. It was so much worse. And then I did after the stitches, I did have a clot that was pushed out through the fundal compression that they do, which was probably about half the size of the placenta. Still minimal blood loss, so not a problem to not a concern, but that was a very unique experience. Just that push down and the clot coming out. Yeah. So there were a couple of things at the end.
Yeah, and this is part of the the mystery that we walk into. We do need help as women. Yeah. And we should be surrounded by people who have that capacity to know and read the signs and to support us to be safe and well. And so, yeah, there you go.
And it was wonderful to have all those people right there in the hospital, ready to go, all the options. And they listened to what I wanted. They respected that really beautifully.
Fabulous.
And then we were home 7 hours later.
Thank you.
Which was amazing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this extraordinary story. And for those listening, we'll see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
This episode has been brought to you by Transform Parenting, an organisation that provides courses, coaching and community from pregnancy through to the first 7 years of a child's life. It is a place where you can learn, get support and grow into your role as a parent. Our Transform Your Birth course, both in Canberra and online, is waiting for you to feel calmer and more confident to give birth and change the way you labour. Or why not watch our free masterclass on Keeping Relaxed and Excited About Birth, where we discuss the 3 most important things that can change a birth. You'll find us at our website on www.transformparenting.com.au.